And welcome back. We are right on into picks and bans. No time to talk about these teams. No time to do introductions. We got to talk about picks and bans right now. Just kidding. Yeah, the teams were ready to go, and they got started a little bit early, but that's okay. We can do introductions while we start these picks and bans. Once again, I'm Jake Kelton, joined by Wraith, as we have in round number 2, SPK Embers taking on Y2150 Orange. And Y2150 has really started to show up as a huge organization in these Scrim gyms. They have teams in every single one of our Scrims, and all of them seem to just continue to be impressive and continue to show up well. But this is actually the other SPK team, Embers, now coming in. We might see an SPK versus SPK finals, which would be incredibly spicy. But here we are on the side of Embers. We've got Cerezel in the top lane. I don't jungle. Look at that. Jungling. Chahai in the mid lane, as Hims will be in the bottom lane AD carry role. And Yarg, we've seen him many a time as support.
And for Y2150 Orange, we've got Anti-Faust in the top lane. Greggy in the jungle. Mobster Penguin 42 in the mid lane. Requiem of Death in the bottom lane ADC role. And Devoid Luigi in the bottom lane supported role.
Which means Karthus 80 carry, boys. Requiem of Death. We gotta have it. We gotta have it. If Orange doesn't pick Karthus ADC, they're trolling. Straight up.
Don't pick Karthus ADC or you're trolling. Sorry.
Oh, wait.
I mean, yeah, you should definitely do that. That's a great idea.
It's a great way for Embers to maybe pick up a bunch of kills in the bottom lane. Either way, they are going to say, you know what, we're so strong, we're actually going to just forego a single ban on our side. Because you know what, who needs that third ban? It's ridiculous. There's not that many strong champions in the game, so we'll just take away the Cassiopeia and Hecarim, making sure that they pinch themselves a good jungler in the early game. That Jarvan, very, very good about initiating plays, as Kale and Vi getting a little bit of TFT rolling in here for Orange, as they grab both of those late game Kale and early game ganking Vi post 6.
Yeah, I'm looking at this Kale a little bit confused, not by the pick, but by the order. First picking Kale that's bold. Yeah, Kale topside, post 6 she can actually do stuff now because she actually gets a ranged attack. But still, that's a little bit scary, especially since it looks like there's going to be an Aatrox, who's a very strong laner. Those first 6 levels are going to be real rough in that top side.
He's incredibly ranged. He has those Infernal Chains to pull the Kale back in. When she doesn't have the long-range auto attacks, she has to step forward, and Aatrox loves champions to step forward into him because he can just wallop them with damage. Plus, even though he did receive a handful of nerfs, his healing is still insane, and he can still absolutely take over a lane. Orianna locked in as well. Going to stay away from the Kiana for now, which means we might be able to see Kiana picked up on the side of Orange. It's going to be instead that Corki locked in, but that means we have yet to see any bottom lane ADCs or supports, so you know what's going to happen in the banning phase. We're going to pinch both of those. I'm looking at a lot of ADCs knocked off the table.
Of course, it could always be Corki in the bottom lane ADC role, but that would be a bad idea.
3,000 IQ.
The last time Corki was in a bottom lane meta was like season 3. I ran into some poor dude who's like, I'm bringing Corki back. He didn't bring Corki back.
He regretted it. Well,
such an unfortunately short-range champion in the bottom lane. Nautilus going to be taken down, a very dominant pick, and has been for quite some time. The area of the hitbox of his hook is just a little bit stupid. I mean, Morgana's Q is ridiculous. And, I mean, everybody's been hit by that Morgana Q who's like, that totally did not hit me. Like, I was way past it. It still hit me. Okay, right.
And the Morgana got banned because of it.
Yes. But Nautilus just throws a literal boat anchor at you. It's like the size of an actual boat. And, well, it usually hits you. Or it hits the minion wave. But one way or the other, it's a pretty difficult skill shot to dodge, and the amount of CC he brings to the table, post 6, where he just clicks on you, knocks you up, and then it doesn't matter if you dodge or not. If you don't have flash, you're going down.
I also like that Yuumi ban from Embers. It's actually more supports being banned away than ADCs. Apparently both teams are saying, look, we don't care who you pick as your AD carry role. We're more concerned about making sure that your initiator of that support isn't an easy champion like that Morgana, Yuumi, or Nautilus, as that Rakan going to be grabbed by the side of Orange, which means they could go with the Xayah. They're basically baiting Embers right now. Are you going to pick up the Xayah to break away the Lovers duo? And they do, which means I expect Orange to have a response to that Xayah being locked in, and we get the new long-range blitz. Maybe. Don't troll me too hard now. We've got 15 seconds before they actually lock this champion in, but they did extend Blitzcrank's range on that hook, and what I've heard is that it's pretty strong. All right, they were just messing with us. It's the Braum. I like that a little bit better into the Corki and the Rakan.
Yeah, there's still a lot of really strong picks left up. Kaisa still operable. I mean, if you wanted to go like last game and go with the Ashe, which is a very powerful champion long range, almost Caitlyn-esque in the lane dominance, and it is going to be the Ashe hovered here. Definitely has a lot of dominance potential over the Xayah, as she does outrange her, and Braum not going to have much to say about that, just from the fact that once he tosses out Winter's Bite, he's not going to be able to affect Ashe in any meaningful way.
But he can
block.
Yes.
But
that's what I was going to say, is that Unbreakable is pretty nice against the Ashe volley, as well as if you see it heading towards a squishy member like the Orianna or the Xayah, you can jump in front of them with the Unbreakable to absorb the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, and then it's very nice late game against the damage coming out from Kayle because of that AoE range attack. Braum's Unbreakable will block a good bit of that damage. So a lot of options there from both teams. However, composition-wise, I feel like SPK Embers, when they've got the ball comp with the Orianna Jarvan, and they've got themselves an incredibly strong top laner and a late game scaling Xayah, but she can still hurt in the early to mid game as well. I feel like their composition is a little bit easier to run, whereas for Orange, you're reliant on the Vise level 6 Assault and Battery, really good Corki roams with package, and once again, Ashe landing these crystal arrows.
Yeah, and the fact that they don't really have a reliable front line makes me a little bit leery of Orange's composition. They have a lot of late game damage. Kayle, Corki, Ashe, very powerful late game champions. However, they do have kind of one of those ulterior front line sort of things that they can do with Rakan, rather than going for straight engage, uses the quickness as a disengage sort of thing and just charms everybody who tries to jump onto his carries. That can work briefly. It's not going to do much for the Orianna Ball Jarvan combo, the bounce house, if you will. And the Aatrox, while Aatrox has just been entirely gutted as a champion, fortunately, it needed to happen. He's been top tier since he was released like 2 years ago. So it was time for him to get nerfed.
Take a back seat.
Yeah, it's like let some other people play now. But yeah, just basically removing his ultimate from the game is what they did. It's like it gives you 25% lifesteal and some bonus attack damage and attack speed, but it's pretty pathetic now.
Hey, come on, when he could literally respawn under turrets and still heal his way out as well. Definitely not OP whatsoever. It's totally fine. It's pretty ridiculous that Riot nerf batted his ultimate, I think 6 patches in a row or something ridiculous. Anyway, to this game specifically, let's talk about this mid lane matchup, because you mentioned Corki, not a very good ADC, and normally we see him paired up with something like the Azir in that mid lane, because Corki can wave clear very quickly, Azir a little bit slower until he gets some good levels, and Corki's roam is so nice. But at this point, with the Vi and the Ashe being his jungle and bottom lane support respectively, I just feel like against Orianna, her wave clear is going to be faster, her roam is going to be stronger, because most people don't think about the fact that Orianna can speed herself up through that jungle using the command protect on herself to speed her along. Actually, no, it's her E. I think dissonance, but she can speed herself up, and unless Corki has package, Orianna should actually be able to out-roam Corki.
Yes, I don't think it's a game of roaming. Like, if Corki has package, is really the only time he's going to be roaming, or at least initiating the play. He'll always be roaming to a play. But as for the actual initiation, when he has package, he should look for roams. Otherwise, it's kind of a scaling duel with him, because Corki, as you said, being kind of the pair to Azir in the lane is because Corki scales about evenly with Azir. A little bit less, but he's an equal damage threat into the late game, and that's what you're looking at. And the thing is, I'm a little leery of Orange's comp for this reason. They have so many champions that are so powerful late game, and so few champions that can do anything in the interim. Ashe has a strong laning phase. Vi can be incredibly impactful as well, but their solo lanes are just like, Corki is okay from levels 1 to 4. Like, he's pretty decent in the early game, and then he's just kind of really meh in the mid game. However, Kayle is like worthless until she hits level 11. So I'm expecting Orange to fall fairly far behind, right, in the early game, at least. They could potentially bring it back in the late game. And we have a pause.
I mean, there's no better falling behind than when you don't even have a player getting into the game. Oh no! Monster Penguins, there he goes, reconnecting. Shouldn't take us long to get back into the game, but it wouldn't be NA if we didn't have at least one pause. And what I'm a little bit scared about is NA and EU both playing in Worlds, and both of them had so many pauses in the professional scene. I feel like at Worlds, every single game is going to get a pause. But hopefully, maybe two negatives with those pauses combined together to make a positive, and we have no pauses. Either way,
what do you mean, a positive?
Oh, we do have Worlds starting tomorrow. If you guys are in the Twitch chat and have some bets on what you think is going to happen at Worlds, feel free to let us know. Excited to hear your thoughts. We also have an esports channel on the Discord that we're going to be chatting it up and discussing the group stages all the way through the finals. We want to see what your guys' pick'ems are once those groups are done and we are into the semifinals. But either way, we are looking now at a bit of a pause here. So we've talked about the mid lane a bit. We've talked about the bot lane a little bit. Is there any lane you want to touch on anymore as we get back into the game?
I think it's really the jungle that's going to have the most impact on this. Depending on which of these two junglers is more active, I think is going to determine the way this game goes. Because if Jarvan could swing and get Orianna really far ahead, then you're in a position where Corki just gets completely zoned out. If he affects the top side, on the other hand, and I mean, that's already a losing lane for Kayle, but then gets her situated, makes her have to blow a teleport, and then reganks, you could remove Kayle from the game, like, entirely until late game, because if Aatrox gets enough of a lead in the top side, he can just prevent Kayle from even accessing the wave. I think the bot lane is the most even matchup because it's slightly dominant on Orange's side, but I really think it comes down to the jungle. And both have the potential to gank very strongly at level 3 and very strongly at level 6. So it's just going to come up to jungle positioning and attention. Where do you think that they're going to focus their attention for starters?
That's the good question, because Vi just wants to hit that level 6 you talked about. She can gank pre-6, and she has some options with the Aatrox and Orianna both being slightly less mobile champions, whereas that Corki can always take his Valkyrie to get out of Jarvan trying to jump in. And post 6, Xayah is going to have that Feather Storm in the bottom lane. So I'm expecting Vi to really pay more attention to that top lane. Aatrox, his ult was nerfed as we talked about earlier, which means it's not nearly as strong, and she has lots of roaming in like the Sejuani behind enemy lines trying to get in if the Aatrox doesn't have any ward coverage down, whereas that Jarvan, I'm really expecting him to focus, I think, more on this bottom lane because Ashe is so low mobility. You burn a flash on her, she's almost an easy kill from there, plus you have the Xayah to join with the Root and Braum, which makes it a very safe lane to gank. But obviously, as you said, Jarvan should be focusing top until that Kayle hits level 6, and then that lane becomes a bit more difficult to gank.
Yeah, I would definitely say that the top lane focus in the early game could definitely yield the most rewards from the side of Jarvan. However, with Vi, I would like to see her come bot, just because that's the only winning lane she has. And if you can get them far enough ahead, you might be able to use that advantage. And here it is. That's what I was expecting.
Anti-Faust.
There's the flash.
Yep, so early ability down, only at that 3-minute mark. That flash already down. Now J4 can try to find another roam. There is a ward in the tri-brush. Can make that a little difficult for him, but easy peasy. And maybe Aatrox can just find that solo kill on Kayle.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. Without the flash, it does make it very difficult for her to get out of the infernal chains. And if she gets hit by that, it's definitely a possibility of just straight up death. But yeah, here comes the Jarvan again, doing exactly what you should in this sort of a matchup, just making their life miserable.
Pressuring her off of that minion wave. Without that flash, there's no real safety net for her. And she actually might think that the Jarvan isn't even around us in the bot lane. Just a little bit of initiation there, kind of testing the waters, seeing how the enemy team responds.
Yeah, and however, on the other side, you do have Vi. While Jarvan has spent so much time up here, he hasn't gotten anything. Like, he hasn't gotten any of his jungle. His entire bot side is open. And if he shows top and Vi is clever, she should go and clear out his entire bot side jungle. But he's definitely put himself behind the Vi, who's now level 4 and will have more ganking threat. Monster Penguin taking a bad trade at the moment.
Yeah,
like I said, Orianna more dominant there.
Potions are down in that mid lane, so things are going to be a little bit rough there. Sir Razel trying to make a play on that top side. The Kayle doesn't have a whole lot of mana, but he misses the Q. The Darkened Blade whiffing means that he can't chase that Kayle any further. He's got a good 10 CS lead up on this Kayle because the flash being down. We'll see if he can grow that. But as you said, that Jarvan spending so much time at the top lane but sitting on a ward means what started so well for him burning that flash has now led into almost nothing, if not a negative, as that Vi is going to be able to hit that level 6 faster.
Yeah, and that's just kind of an opportunity cost. Had he managed to get the Kayle to go down or to burn the teleport, which is the big deal, then there was definitely the possibility of that reward paying off. But as it stands, we'll see how Greggy uses this advantage he's got. Where is he going to put his ganks? And it looks like he's positioning toward the mid lane, but never mind, decides not to. Whoa, he's going to start up this Drake.
Yep, this is something Vi's can do. It's very difficult for them to solo the Drake all the way until it's down. And Brahm's actually going to even walk forward. Okay, he just drops a ward in the tri-brush. But what they do is that Vi's will start up the Ocean Drake. And then as they start to get a little bit lower, usually the support comes in just to give them a little bit of healing. So I'm expecting Devoid Luigi to actually break away and try to help out this Vi. No, Greggy doesn't even need it. Just burn through a ton of potions, started off with that refillable pot, and takes the Ocean Drake solo. So a nice little victory for Orange despite being down about 400 gold.
Yeah, and Ocean Drake does the least amount of damage of any of the Drakes, so definitely not necessarily a terrifying endeavor. If you try and take a Wind Drake solo, that's very, very difficult. Deals the most DPS, which is kind of funny considering it's really the lamest Drake.
Speed boost Rammus. Come on now. We're confining a 2-man. Knock up in the bottom lane. But again, it's just that initial harassment. Trying to poke them out, force them to reconsider, and burn a bunch of mana. As you can see him sitting fairly low, having to eat one of those biscuits to keep that mana up just a little bit. Junglers, the Vi still leading by a tiny bit, about to hit that level 6. See where she actually uses it once she gets it.
Now, I have to give Sir Razel credit. Look at his wave control here, and the CS lead that he's opened up over the Kayle because of it. If Kayle tries to approach this wave, she's risking being ganked by the Jarvan, who has been hovering this top side. And she gets a good trade, so she's probably going to be able to shove this wave in here. But there is a Jarvan on the top side. But Vi is coming up here, anticipating the gank pressure that's about to come through. Whoa, Anti-Faust getting a strong trade down there. now that he has access to the range, and he's going to get to shove this in and get a favorable recall off. Still down 30 CS, but that's exactly what we were expecting, considering that the flash was blown.
Well, so Razel's going to TP back in. Jarvan's around the corner. They could look for the two-man play. They don't know that Greggy is there, so it would be dangerous if they're thinking that it's a 2v1. But with that top laner of the Kayle backing away, at least for now, that recall coming through, it was canceled, which means Sir Razel's going to be all alone up there. They're hiding in the bush, but look at Sir Razel just slowly pushing out this wave. Levi charging up the cube. We're hop back to the bottom side as Him's going to be taking a bit of trouble. There it is, the play at the top side. Sir Razel, can he get out of this? He's got the ultimate going. Greggy's got the kill ultimate to survive the turret shots, though. So no kill down. First blood still available. Ult's lost in the top lane by all three members.
Yeah, ult for ult. And I Don't Jungle is in a position where he's looking like he wants to gank, but that is a very good gank.
Oh, play in the bot lane. Hold on. Yarg flashing away. He's got the Ignite ticking down. Nice two-man root from Hims. They had to burn it, though, because Ashe ulted. It was cleansed by the Xayah. Now playing the top side. I Don't Jungle getting a little bit of the slowdown onto Anti-Faust. He's also got that red buff. No, it's not a red buff. Hold on. Unless it burned away. Whoa! Gets it despite the flash from Anti-Faust. The Cataclysm from Jarvan's enough damage to take her down. Wow, first blood to Embers.
Late flash on the Kayle. Jarvan ultimate, you can flash. If you flash it early, you ignore the damage. But unfortunately, not quick enough fingers there, and does lose out on the life that she could have had there. But Kayle does have the teleport, so manages to go back and isn't going to lose out on too much CS here. Hold on, meanwhile, in the mid lane.
Lots of rockets coming out from Monster Penguin, but Chai might find the shockwave. Doesn't need it. Gets a little bit of a cleanse, but or not cleanse. It's barrier for barrier. Nice flash. Oh, Chai getting the outplay. Flash for not flash. Monster Penguin did not use that flash in the mid lane, but still picks up the 1v1 kill.
Yeah. The Corki really shouldn't have gone for that. He's not a duelist at this phase of the game. When he has Trinity Force, he'll be in a much better position to duel the Orianna, but as it stands, just with a Sheen and half the components for a Phage, not in a damage position where he's going to be able to do much but just poke out and trade single autos.
So 2 kills now lead for SPK Embers, but Orange has themselves that Ocean Drake, one of the nicer drakes to pick up early, as you can kind of stall out these lanes a little bit longer. You get that health and mana back. The package is grabbed by Monster Penguin in the mid lane, so talked about the possibility of a roam. He's going to head right now a little bit to that south side to just kind of make sure there's no control wards in that bottom side brush. Check there. And then go back to farming in that mid lane. Quick look at the bottom side. ADCs are still even in farm. No big deaths down there. Ultimates available for almost everyone. Brom's going to be up here in just a moment. And so most of the action of this game has happened in this top side.
And Sir Razel back at it again with this freeze is absolutely crushing Kayle's spirit. Making her push up that far in order to get access to the wave. And with Jarvan, who's constantly been seen on this side of the map, it's definitely got to be nerve-wracking for her. But Darkened Blade used, so now Anti-Faust can kind of walk forward, get a few autos
Mountain
off.
Drake started by Embers. They might be able to finish it off by going in. Can't she smite this away and steal it? No, the Jarvan's going to be able to lock it down. The rest of the team collapsing from Orange, but a great brick from the Xayah roots up the enemy team. They've been able to grab 2 so far. Can they finish off the Corki as well? Members of Embers are getting a little bit low, but Monster Penguin under 300 health, throwing out those rockets, unable to fight it. Jarvan's got the knock upon to Requiem of Death. Get the Ash, gets to the wall, the flash over. She's been able to survive for now, but the flash from Xayah. She's chasing in, forces the flash on Mobster. A couple more feathers, almost takes down the Corki. Unable to get any more. It's a 3-4-1, I believe it was.
Yep. And this is what I was worried about from the draft. It's not necessarily poor execution that's doing them in, it's poor drafting. Orange just doesn't have the damage in the early game to try and take fights around the dragon. And when you draft this way, you have to understand that and play accordingly. If they'd just given over the Drake there, it probably would have been okay. But as it stands, going down 4 kills there as well, because they're already down a decent amount of CS in the top side, and that now their one semi-winning lane is completely blown wide open. Those 2 kills going over to Xayah gives her access to Essence Reaver, completing her item and half of her boots before Ashe manages to get access to Blade of the Ruined King. That is crushing in that lane. Meanwhile, Serazel rotating down to the bot side, rotating the duo lane up against Kale.
Well, one other way to shut Kale down is to bring some people that Kale's going to have a very difficult time, and we'll see how Serazel does against a duo in the bot lane, maybe hoping that he's strong enough, being that 30 CS lead over the Kale, that he can deal with these two. Gets knocked up for a moment, starts that ultimate. He's actually piecing out that bot lane. Rift Herald called the top side. That's why they made the rotation. They wanted Jarvan to grab themselves the Rift Herald, as they're going to get the charge of the top lane turret, giving that gold over to the Xayah. 3 plates down. This should be top lane first turret going over to SPK Embers. And while they sacrifice Serazel in that bottom lane, they're going to be able to get first turret and a lot of gold.
You see, the thing is, I really kind of didn't like that rotation decision, because I almost wanted them to wait this out a little bit more, just because of how far ahead Serazel was over Anti-Faust. And yes, they do get first turret, but that was almost guaranteed if Serazel continued what he was doing in the top side there. And they do trade a ton of plates back onto the Ashe, which is, while that lane was kind of down. Wow, okay. That was a lot of damage.
Serazel hurts.
Yeah. But they get all of those plates back onto the Ashe, who's starting to fall a little bit further behind. So it's kind of, while I understand the decision making, I'm not sure I entirely agree with it.
Well, they got that charge on the second turn of the top lane. Oh, Shockwave's going to miss in the bot lane, and out they're caught with quickness. He's got the 2 members locked up. Ashe slowing them down. Raze will be the first to fall, and Chaw quick to fall afterwards as well. Excuse me, not because there is a flash used to save their life. Yeah, I don't. Jungle coming to the bot lane. Cataclysm just knocking down the Rakan. It's actually the Orianna picking up the kill credit. Mobster Penguin a bit of a 1v1 to the Xayah in that mid lane. Requiem of Death going to be knocked up with that ultimate out of the Bronx. She's secured underneath the turret. The tanky members are there diving. They've got themselves a second kill. Yarg goes golden with the stopwatch to get out of the bot lane turret. An incredible dive from Embers, picking up more kills and should be a second turret in this bot lane.
Yeah, that was incredibly well executed. Seeing that all of the cooldowns were blown, there was no real CC to be had right there. They go right under the turret with no fear. Yarg, knowing that he had access to the stopwatch, make sure to take turret aggro, getting the auto attack underneath the tower before the dive actually started, and then just using that stopwatch to reset the aggro at the very end. Well played, sir.
And that is something that Orange should have seen coming, because they had the rotation from Embers in the top lane. All those members who were in top walked through the mid lane trying to make a play on Corki, and then they just kept walking to the bottom side. But if you look at the bottom side river, the vision is absolutely gone from Orange. They're now coming in trying to get a little bit of vision, but because they had not a single ward in that river, they didn't see Embers walking their way into the bot lane, bringing more people to that fight. And while the initiation from Devoid Luigi was really nice on that quickness, the collapse out of Embers was just faster.
And it's, again, the problem of not having enough early game dominance to be taking the fights that they are. They're playing aggressively as if they were playing like Draven or something like that has that early game dominance, and their execution overall is fairly good. However, just the aggression, like, see, look at this. Anti-Faust playing so aggressive into Serazel against an early game champion and being forced to blow his flash.
Gets the Q slow as well, so Serazel might have to call off that chase. Yeah, backs away, but man, oh man, the Aatrox keeping time with this Kale, keeping her down in this top lane. They are making a play. Embers on this Mountain Drake should be the second Drake of the game for themselves. Double mountains makes life so much easier when they want to jump on that Baron up in 3 minutes time.
Yeah, and that's Kale's flash down in the top side, so I expect a little bit more attention from the jungler here. The thing is when Jarvan comes into your lane and you don't have flash and you don't have any mobility like Kale, then the Cataclysm is almost a death sentence if you're not strong enough to 2v1.
Well, and this Aatrox, keep in mind how much damage Aatrox has been doing, and he has yet to actually complete a full item. I give him so much respect for choosing not to fight in lanes he doesn't know that he can win. You saw him in the top lane. As soon as the Corki showed up over that ward that he dropped to get vision on the Kale, he immediately backed away, went ahead and recalled, but is now catching yet another wave up there. And Cerezo's patience this entire game has been nothing but fantastic to watch.
Yeah, and the way he froze the wave. When you're playing an aggressive laner like the Aatrox into the Kale, a very dominant matchup, the temptation is just to shove, 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 shove. Make him sit under tower. Hold on a second. Yard is a little bit caught out, but he's going to be fine here. Not enough follow-up CC to punch through the Braum ult. But that being said, you want to push him underneath the turret, and that just feels really good. Hold on, Anti-Faust.
Dropping the ultimate in the top lane, but so does Cerezo. Actually, that's Aatrox running away. Anti-Faust's Q starting to come in and make that Aatrox hurt a little bit because he cannot chase and actually take those fights. Mid lane fight kind of devolved around that mid lane turret. Just a bit of harassment, and everyone kind of split up and went their separate ways.
Yeah, we are hitting close to the 20. Hold on a second.
Well, somebody that didn't split up was Orange. Nice collapse after that Ash Arrow. They finally found a pick. I think that was the maybe second Ash Arrow this entire game. Requiem Death finally made it count. Yard coming into that mid lane, throws up the Unbreakable, going to use the quickness by that Rakan, trying to knock people away. Devoy Luigi taking a couple of dirt shots, and he's able to dash away for now. 200 health and lower. Jarvan gets a 3-man knockup, going back in with a flag and drag, but he's going to be burned down. A bit too aggressive. Him's coming in from this side, but the Xayah all alone. Thinking twice about coming into the aggressive stance, instead goes defensively to protect that mid lane second turret.
I mean, that's a pretty big deal from the side of Orange there. Getting those couple of kills back, as well as the turrets on both top and bot and mid, as well as dropping the one in the bot side very low. There's a decent chance that they could come back from this. They are scaling, and it's getting to the point where Kale is starting to overmatch the Aatrox. He's starting to get out-traded, and for some reason he hasn't completed the full item here. He hasn't combined it yet. That has to be a spectator glitch. There's no way he's up that much gold on Kale.
He's sitting on 1,200 gold right now. He's actually in the bot lane with 1,200 gold, just came back out of the base without having finished off that full item. Not sure what his plan is. We'll have to see. But as you said, yeah, dying in the top lane, losing the top lane turret and the mid lane turret. I believe Embers is up about 2,000 gold, but now there's only 1,000 gold separating these two teams, and they are dancing around this Baron, kind of baiting the other team into potentially starting it up, hoping that they can get a good collapse.
Yeah, but Anti-Faust, that's the thing with Aatrox right here. If he doesn't keep a lid on this Kale, there is still the joke of the Kale Mary. You know, Kale gets far enough ahead and suddenly, well, I guess our entire team just died. But we had the better team composition, and we were way far ahead, and we had all this CC, and it doesn't matter. Kale. You just got Kaled. It's the most disgusting salad, but it wins League of Legends games.
And brings the hail in that late game with all the AoE damage. A hailstorm, a Kalestorm. That's the word I was looking for. Brings the Kalestorm later on, but at the moment,
I'm just imagining leaves falling from the sky.
In this side lane, stuck. Jarvan actually going to be sent down to the bottom lane to try to evade her pushing in. That's the jungler in the bottom lane, which means if one of these neutral objectives gets started up, he has a long way to go to try to get there, but it looks like both teams might be rotating towards that Drake, the Mountain Drake number 3 of the game. It's going to be spawning here shortly as a lot of pings from both teams. Corki's pinging out Orange and headed up there to clear some of that vision. The Embers might be trading this mountain for a Baron. Going to be sticking around, starting up that Mountain Drake, and Orange is looking to collapse.
Yeah, I don't know if they really want to take this fight. The Mountain Drake's just not worth it. They are 3 mountains strong right now, and that is going to be a major thing to deal with in the late game, especially considering that Baron is definitely on the table, and that team doesn't take Baron incredibly well anyway. but it's kind of the opportunity cost you have for drafting this incredibly late-game scaling composition. But if they can stall out, that's the name of the game right now for Orange. If they stall, they do outscale. Aatrox doesn't scale anywhere near what Kale does.
Well, Vi's going to jump forward, knowing that the Braum ultimate is down. J4 still goes in, hasn't used the Cataclysm, he's going to drop it onto the Corki. The Aatrox is not here, finally joins hopping over the wall. The 5v5 for both teams is here. No one going down just yet. I don't jungle. Trying to catch somebody out, so Razor getting the knock-up. Can the Jarvan find the knock-up as well? Cannot. And all the members of Orange are able to back away. Kite away for now. I don't jungle dropping fairly low. The Asher arrow going to lock him up. He's stunned. He's down. Greggy's been able to take down the enemy jungler. And now he'll be jumping into the backline looking for Cha. The Vi will drop a bit too aggressive. The root from the Xayah, good enough to hold it in place. Nice Feather Storm as well. The Shockwave out of the Orianna. They're turning the fight around. They've dropped 4 members. This could be the ace if Braum is able to tag a Mobster with the Q. He doesn't do it, but 3 members of Embers able to survive the onslaught. Incredible backing from Cha and Hims in that fight.
Yeah, and it was so close to a turnaround from Orange, but Requiem flashed forward into zero vision and just completely suicided right into that brush there. He even had a stack of Hawk Shot up to toss into the bush. Unfortunately, did not do so and then gave over his life, turning that fight completely around. It was what I was talking about last game, Jake, with knowing when to leave well enough alone. You got 3 members, but you're chasing into zero vision and their carries are still up and the Shockwave is still available. Very unfortunate, but still, they do manage to pick off the jungler and stop the Baron take, or the potential Baron take, because it looked like SPK was starting to position around that Baron, and as they are doing so now, but having I Don't Jungle fall there. Oh, and here comes the Baron.
They've got triple mountains. Look at how fast this Baron is going to drop. Now the members of Orange are around the corner. The TP coming in from the Kayla as well, but they cannot stop the Baron from going down. It's the Aatrox who actually secures it, and Vi hops over the wall, only to go down. Gets the Kale ultimate surviving for a little bit longer. J4 cataclysm into the enemy team, delaying them from backing the shield, but the Shockwave not going to be able to take her down. 1 for 1 so far. Jungler for jungler. Both teams backing away, but Embers get away with the Baron buff.
And honestly, on that one, I feel like Embers could have kept going. They had an ultimate advantage. Almost all of them had been burned in the last engage, and the Shockwave was back up, but it was burned as well. Devoid Luigi in a position where he's kind of behind the enemy team, might be looking for something with the quickness, and it looks like he is. Up
as well onto the Xayah, but no response from his team. He might actually just go down, stunned up due to the Braum passive concussive blows. It's a support for support trade. Man, a great initiation from Devoid Luigi, but no team follow-up.
Yeah. If they had followed up, that would have been 3-man 8 or knockdown right there, and then they definitely could have turned that into something, at least some vision control. Unfortunately, no available objectives at the moment, but some vision control as well as wave control would have been very nice for this team, plus to help with morale a little bit, because they are substantially behind.
Yeah, especially after losing the Baron buff. I mean, credit to Devoid. It was a good initiation, but as a support, you have to be reliant on your team, and this is where communication really comes in key. Are you letting your team know that you're making the play? He was standing there for a minute, but the team might have been telling him to back away, and he's like, no, I got this, and goes in anyway. And those are the plays that you cannot give over. It's just more opportunity for Embers to snowball further ahead. They're now almost 5,000 gold in the lead. They still have those triple mountains, so if the Xayah gets onto one of these turrets, it's just going to crumble in a moment. And as the pressure continues to mount from Embers, they could split the map up, still send the Aatrox into a side lane, or they could just group and once again try to deathball with the Orianna Jarvan combo.
Yeah, I expect deathball because now the
Aatrox has completed items! Sorry, I got too hyped about that. Sorry. He has 2 items.
Kale is in a side lane with nobody answering, so I do think that grouping is the better option here and just forcing their way deathball down mid, because Kale is unable to be answered at the moment, so if they just ignore her and force mid lane, force the teleport, and force her to join, it'll stop her from scaling as much.
Oh, Vi's gonna initiate a little bit. Corki throwing out that ultimate just to push them off of this mid lane inhibitor turret, but the cannon's still going to be burning it down bit by bit. The Baron empowered cannon minion taking it down. Cerezo just forcing the kill to back away. All she wants to do is delay him from joining the rest of the team as they protect this cannon. The rockets from Corki blocked by the Unbreakable from Yard. Gonna take down this cannon minion. No, they're initiating forward. That's the inhibitor turret number 1 going down. The flash from the Corki as the Xayah ultimate gonna be cleansed by, sorry, the Ashe ultimate cleansed by the Xayah. Goes out the Feather Storm. Oriana Shockwave stopping the Rakan from getting the engage he wanted. Razel's TP'd in. The fight is all in the hands of Embers. The Kayla is making her way back to the base, flying her way slowly, but I'm sorry, the teleport from Aatrox, his wings are just so much faster. They're onto the Nexus turrets itself. Reggie once again going forward, gets the Kale ultimate, but it's not going to do all that much. I don't jungle, backing away, but the Kale's gone too far forward. Him's damage, 6-0 and 6-3 completed items. They're charting up, cleaning at the wave, waiting to jump onto the Nexus turret once again. The Baron empowerment has dropped off, but they're moving onto the second Nexus turret. Greggy going forward one more time. However, no Kale ultimate there. Might not be needed, though. Jarvan going golden with a stopwatch around for a little bit longer, but will drop. It is yet again another naked Nexus in game number 2.
Yep, and I think the result is going to be about the same, having the ability to access that Nexus. And no, nobody had the foresight to actually drop a ward in there. It's always funny, the TP plays during the team fight. Just TP finish the game. But meanwhile, Cerezo recalling on a ward. Not going to get chased down, though. If Vi actually chases into Fog of War, it's probably a really bad idea, even though nobody's there. Her giving herself over would just not be in the positive interests of Team Orange. I almost said Embers.
Well, game 1, the team that had the triple Mountain Drakes, they won the game. Game number 2, the team that has the triple Mountain Drakes should be winning this game. Well, they are winning this game and should be able to close the game out, even though double Oceans have now been secured by Orange. This brings into question game number 3. Will these teams play more heavily around these Drakes? Because most of the Drakes throughout these 2 games have been fairly uncontested.
Yeah, that is a very good observation, Jake, that yes, all of the Drakes, with the exception of 2 in the last 2 games, have been almost entirely left to their own devices and just picked up either completely solo or with little help from the teammates and then very little contesting from the opposition. There was the one that kind of started off this negative snowball, that Mountain Drake, where they did try and go for it, or Orange tried to contest it, but they didn't. They weren't at a phase of the game where they could actually reliably do so, and ended up getting nearly wiped for their troubles, and that's kind of where this whole problem started. And now we stand in front of a naked Nexus.
Ashe does not want to ult because the Brahma Unbreakable is just going to stop it. Now's the initiation for the Rakan. The quickness into multiple members, but a great ultimate out of Xayah. It's the wrong direction, but she has survived, and that's what matters. Jarvan goes in with the Cataclysm. The Gargoyle still in place, surviving long enough for the Aatrox to start to tear the enemy team apart. They're all falling. Anti-Foul's the only member left alive, but the damage is just too great. Xayah and Oriana take her down. A quick snap engage from Embers. Give themselves the ace and the victory in the game. A fantastic finish from them, slow and steady until the end, where they just burned through the enemy team and came out victorious.
And quietly a 9-0 Xayah in that game. Definitely worth pointing out that bot lane, despite the fact that Ashe is a little bit of stronger of a laner than Xayah, not incredibly so, but should definitely have the edge in that lane. That was very well done, turning those 2 kills she was gifted in the early game during that bot lane fight into a strong lead, which ends at 9-0, just shredding the opposition. And I think, as usual with these scrim gyms, Jake, lost in draft. Draft is so important in these scrim gyms where you have incredibly highly organized teams with decent shot calling. the usage of the champion that you're playing inside of your team composition becomes even more important than it is in a normal game.
Well, and what's really curious is that we talked about how Ashe was buffed in the patch 9.19, and yet we've seen Ashe game 1 and game number 2 really struggle to make much of an impact. And it might be the players just unused to playing her because she's not that common of a champion. Maybe people are still warming back up to her. But this game in particular, I gotta say the Braum really felt like a fantastic counter pick. It really limited Requiem of Death's choices when it came to trying to just go fishing with that ultimate. Every time Braum can just throw the Unbreakable, step in front of it, absorb it for the team. He's tanky enough that he can take the hits and then back away. And I like that counter pick from the side of Embers.
Mm-hmm. And also, I wanted to comment on this when I was looking at it in the lane. But the Braum stepping in front of the minion wave under tower while Ashe was trying to farm and just blocking auto attacks and making minions die. Just artificially boosting his ADC CS lead. That's good supporting right there.
So making the life of the enemy team very, very difficult. And quick note as well, Serazel in the top side, even after level 6, they didn't do all that much. Was just really split pushing until the very last team fights where everyone just kind of grouped and pushed hard down mid. You know, group is 5, A ram it, finished the game off. Surviving against the Kayle forced Anti-Faust, even post 6, to really stick to a side lane. She didn't get many turrets, only the top and bottom lane first tier turrets were really secured by the Kayle, and mostly just wasn't a part of the team where the rest of Embers were able to take those 4v4s time and time again.
Yeah, he was actually incredibly dominant in the early game. The way he controlled the wave was something that very much impressed me in that game. Rather than constantly shoving Kayle in, he just completely denied her access to the wave because she'd already blown flash and couldn't push up that far. And without help from her jungler to come up top lane to clear the wave, there was really no potential for her to access the minions. And she did end up down, despite the fact that even now down in CS, despite the fact that she spent every moment of the game in a side lane and didn't actually get to impact the team fights at the phase of the game where she would be most useful.
All right, well, game number 1, triple Mountain Drake, team wins the game. Game number 2, triple Mountain Drakes, the team wins the game. Game number 3, Team Help Desk were victorious over SPK Defiance. So it'll be Embers taking on Team Help Desk. We're going to take a quick break and maybe see triple Mountain Drakes for a 3rd game in a row. We'll have to find out in a moment. We're going to take a quick break and be right back. Don't go anywhere.
I'm going to the bathroom.
We'll be right back with more pain and death after these messages.